2026, I've decided I'm going to combine my thought for the day with my daily reading. So I'm going to begin each reading with a thought for the day. And this is a pretty good one. It kind of takes me back to when I was a kid, actually. Amid pleasures and palaces, though we may roam, be it ever so humble, there is no place like home. John Howard Payne. And it takes me back to we used to have a similar saying on the wall at home when I was a kid. Even when I was a teenager. I guess I was still a kid then, right? But of course, as teenagers, you don't think so, correct? I'm trying to think what it was. It will come back to me eventually, the whole thing, but it was about home, about no place like home. So if anybody knows it, let me know. So here's today's reading, and it's, of course, by Rev Margaret Stortz, and it's on kindness. By doing his work, he makes the need felt which he can supply, or by doing their work, they make the need felt for which they can supply. And it's one of Emerson's essays, I think on nature, and it's on page 101 of Emerson's essays, but I think the actual subsection is nature. What does it mean? Well, we'll come back to it because the first affirmation that Reverend Margaret gave us fits in with this, and it actually helps with the explanation of it. By doing their work, they make the need felt for which they can supply. So remember that, maybe. And the Science of Mind textbook, in here, Ernest Holmes on page 423 says, to each is given what they need, and the gifts of heaven come to all alike. To each is given what they need, and the gifts of heaven come to all alike. And this is from Reverend Margaret. She says, over the last several months, I noticed an interesting phenomenon in the form of outbreaks of day-brightening acts of kindness. They're not specifically big deals, but they show up more often than usual, almost organically, as if naturally bidden. For example, instead of cars whizzing by me when I back out of my garage, which they usually do, some seem to cut me a break by waiting patiently as I pull out into the street. When I'm running errands, people smile and wave, and sometimes greet me as if to pass on a welcoming day. Others too have noticed these openings that have not shown up before. What's up? Is it the innate desire of people trying to simply reconnect, driven perhaps by hostile environments? Is it simply missing the ease with which we used to greet one another? Is it the reconvening of safe casual boundaries that were blasted away through manufactured fear and hatred? Whatever it is, she says, count me in. I'm making the effort to engage in the kindness movement, which is something that we can all do. We can all be more present to what goes on around us. Does a stranger need a word of greeting? Does a mother need a little help shepherding a gaggle of small children across the street? We have the gifts of the Spirit within us. It's freely given them. Let's freely give them all away. So I guess there's a bunch of explanations for this. One is Reverend Margaret is implying that people are just getting friendlier and noticing people more and just carrying out acts of kindness. And that may be 100% true. Maybe it is something that's going through the human race or in her particular part of the world. I don't know. The two other explanations are, one is that she is actually looking, albeit maybe subconsciously, for people to do these acts of kindness. And when they show up, she notices them. That's another explanation. And linked to that is the fact that we have this little thought device at the back of our heads here at the base of our brainstem here, by our brainstem, called the RAS, the reticular activating system. And what that does is it lets in things that it thinks are of interest or importance to you, and it screens out the rest. So if you suddenly start focusing, for instance, as she does, on acts of kindness, the RAS is going to let you perceive those acts of kindness, which were there before, but because you weren't focused on them or thinking about them or interested in them, didn't appear to be there, didn't show up. Other stuff that you were interested in came into your subconscious mind and therefore into your conscious mind. So for instance, if you decide you want to buy a new car and you want to buy a red car of a particular make, I guarantee you are going to start seeing those. They were there all the time, but because you weren't interested in them, you wouldn't notice them. So anyway, I'm offering several explanations here, and possibly it's a combination of all of those. It's possibly a combination of all of those. But the whole point is this, that if we start focusing on the good in life and expecting more of the good in life, we will definitely see more of it. And if it's true, as I believe, and as Carl Jung believed, and other psychologists believe, that the human race is interconnected at a subconscious level, then these acts of kindness are indeed percolating throughout the human subconscious mind, the group human subconscious mind, and not just the individual mind. So there you have it. But the whole point is this. Let's start concentrating on expecting acts of kindness for ourselves and others. And I guarantee that when we start expecting them, we'll start getting them. So let's get rid of the opposite, which some of my friends do. They expect the opposite. They're waiting for the shoe to drop, and it will. Let's start concentrating on looking for the good stuff in life, and in this particular case, acts of kindness. Now, going back to Emerson, who said, and I'm going to make it gender non-specific, by doing their work, they make the need felt for which they can supply. The first affirmation is, the divine good fulfills me, always has, always will, and I access it every day. That's one. But the second part is this. Willingly, I bring my gifts to life, kindness, generosity, joy, compassion, and love. Willingly, I bring my gifts to life, kindness, generosity, compassion, joy, and love. And when we do that, we actually create that needing other people for the same thing. So we are needed. So we actually create ourselves, we create the need for what we supply. And that's what Emerson's saying here. Yeah? By doing my work, I make the need felt for which I can supply. So in other words, I attract it. I attract that need because I can supply it. So lots to think about on the second day of January 2026. So, well, I just read the affirmations, so I don't think I need to read them again. Willingly, I bring my gifts to life. And you can add in kindness, generosity, joy, compassion, and love. So with that, I am just going to remind you, my wonderful colleague, Reverend Lisa Ryan, will be on Creative Life Spiritual Center's Facebook page tomorrow morning around 9:15. I will be back tomorrow, hopefully around about 5 o'clock. And in the meantime, I just know for each and every person here to expect wonderful gifts of kindness, joy, compassion, and love to show up in their life and everyone else's life. And I claim this as a divine truth, knowing it is spreading throughout the human family. And I claim this as good. And for all of this, I'm grateful. I release it and I call it done and I let it go. And so it is. Until next time, namaste.